Yeah, I don't, like I said, so.
Okay, thanks for the information.
Did you generally have one, two?
Yeah. Yeah,
Girls.
yeah, but we don't want them to.
Right, we're gonna
Yeah.
cross it out. That is, okay, that takes it out.
Oh,
Send it out. Did you get it?
I just, yeah, I haven't really.
Okay, cool. We're live.
Read it, it just was sent here, just sent it.
Just keep those there.
Yep. So the meeting is going online. So anybody who tries to join, I just went to the YouTube, they should be able to. Why do I have two of these? Did anyone turn the mics on? Huh? Did anyone turn the mics on?
I did not.
Do you want me to go try real quick?
That was great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, let's get started. Welcome everyone to the Village of Williamsville Board Meeting for Monday or Tuesday, October 11th, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Trustee Hunt.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Administrator Kindred, would you do the roll call, please?
Yes. Mayor Rogers.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Delano.
Here.
Trustee Loader. Here. Trustee Hunt.
Here.
Trustee Torrey.
Here.
Tony Greco.
Here.
Deputy Treasurer Lee.
Here.
Deputy Chief Nolan.
Okay. Thank you. We have no proclamations, so I'll get into making a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from September 26, 2022. All in favor? Aye. Okay, we do have 4 public hearings this evening, so I'll make a motion to open the first public hearing, which is about amendments for technical changes to Chapter 47 HPC of the Village Code, as is continued from September 26th of 2022.
We don't need a second for that, right? It's already open, or reopening it,
Yeah, I would
second it.
reopen that.
All right, second.
All in favor? Aye. So if you would like to comment on technical changes to Chapter 47 HPC, we ask that you come up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Anyone in the audience?
It's a continuation of a public hearing that was opened last meeting regarding some proposed amendments to Chapter 47, which is the Historic Preservation Code of the village, that were primarily intended to be technical in nature. I mean, but there's, well, I don't know if there's copies up here, there were copies at the last meeting.
Okay, I know we had some written comments, so Deputy Mayor Delano, did you want to read those for the record?
Oh, for the,
You can, you don't have to, I mean, they're,
that's kind of, I mean, are there copies up there? Can we just submit these into the
Yeah.
minutes?
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, to be honest, my voice is a little raw.
I only had a chance to take a quick look at some of these. The only thing I'll, mention about it is these particular comments would require the village board. She's advocating that the village board subject changes to a mandatory referendum. That's different than what is proposed in the local law, and that's something certainly we can do, but Just so you
Right, so for,
understand, if you were to do that, then the village would have to hold a referendum. on it.
so at this, right, so at this time, this is kind of,
Well, there's just comments.
They're
They're public
comments.
they're public comments,
She-
right,
she
so,
would like to see some changes from what the proposed
So-
local law provides.
and I didn't get it because I got this
I know,
late
it
today, so,
came-
so essentially, any change to the?
No,
just,
only the change that has to do with the filling of vacancies.
Okay, I thought there was maybe something else.
That's what conflicts with New York State village law.
This
Okay.
one, you can read this one if
You can come
want
up to the microphone,
one.
yeah.
You wanna read it? Go ahead.
Wait, what are we doing?
Typically, we don't read, this
Yeah,
is,
why
this
don't you
is,
I mean,
so it's just submitted for
You
record.
guys
I
can
mean,
read it.
we can
I just
read
want to
it.
make sure everybody on the board reads it though. please.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, yes.
I just have a quick question.
You just state your name and address.
Charles Ciona, 5411 Main Street.
Thank you.
In subsection, second page here on this, I believe it's section 3, I'm sorry. 4713A. Is this any determination by the code enforcement officer as to whether a certificate of appropriateness is required for such work is subject to appeal now to the, and determination by the zoning board of appeals pursuant to chapter 11224B? That's a deviation from the past. That's a new shift. Is that retroactive to what's currently been decided? If this is passed, is that gonna affect
No.
past rulings?
No.
And prolong the situation to?
No. It's not retroactive.
Okay.
Any other comments on chapter 47?
Did we state who the written comments were submitted on?
You can, I mean, it's on the document, but it's
Well,
the chairperson of the HPC, Kate Waterman, called up.
yes. And she is very knowledgeable on these things, so I'm sure she did her research on them.
Just for the public's information, it's a 4-page comment on the changes to the code from the chairman of the Historic Preservation Commission, Kate Waterman Caldwell.
They should be summarized in the minutes of the public hearing, along with all the others.
Yeah, we're submitting, yeah, they're in the minutes of the public hearing.
Okay, any other comments? Does this board want to keep the public hearing open?
Are we shooting for passing this next meeting?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think this is the first time I'm saying this, so I haven't had a chance to read it.
Yeah, but this wouldn't necessarily, like you're saying.
It doesn't, you can keep it open, you can close it, it has nothing, doesn't commit you to making a decision on it now, next
No,
month,
no.
the month after.
I think
It's
we
just a
should
question
keep
of
it
whether you
open.
That's
think
fine.
that there is more people that want to be heard on these things.
That's fine.
I think we should keep it open. Okay, do you
And,
agree?
and I actually think that's probably a good idea, because when you all take a look at this, you may ask me to make some
Right.
changes to what's proposed in there, and then we have to renotice it for, if there are significant changes, we probably have to renotice it. Yeah,
Okay.
why don't you keep it open?
All right.
All right, so,
Can I ask a question?
Sure, if it,
Yeah, I was just talking to.
Name, address, name.
Oh, sorry, Yaquin, who 100 Westchester Road, Williamsville. I was just talking to Trustee Tor about the village's web implementation that's outward facing. I was wondering if the village also uses technology internally for within a board, like some sort of forum for communication, or also between and among boards where they have like communication channels, you can see the discussion that's going on within one board.
We're still in a public hearing, right, or did you continue that one?
no, we were still in a public hearing, yeah. So can you save that question until we get to public comment in a few minutes?
yeah, this is for the
This is for chapter
chapter
47.
47, public
Yeah.
hearing, chapter
For
47.
from last night for the HPC.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, my question was related to that because it seems like the overhead of managing another committee is playing a factor in the decision making. So I was just asking a question about your tech stack, which affects the overhead in connection to that decision.
That will probably be better served in the public comment. That particular question.
All right.
Because it,
Can I loop it back to this and
Oh, sure.
state that it is related to this, but later?
Well, you can bring it up later, sure, but we wanted to stick to this chapter 47 in itself. It just makes it's a cleaner process.
Well, whatever, if you're proposing that something should be included in the proposed amendments to chapter 47, that's what should be set forth for the public hearings.
Right, but
If you have a question about how the village operates, that's not really
Right.
the subject of the public hearing. We can
Correct.
talk about that outside the context of the public hearing.
correct. Thank you. All right, so you want a
I'm
motion?
gonna make a motion to
suspend it?
continue the public hearing at our next board meeting, which would be Monday, October 24th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the next public hearing, I'll make a motion to open. It's for amendments for technical changes to chapter 112 zoning of the village code as continued from 9/26/22.
I just said that Ms. Culpa's letter also addresses.
I'm going to bring that up. Yep,
Wasn't just chapter 47.
Yep. I see that. So a second we had?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. So this time, if you'd like to comment on the technical changes to chapter 112 zoning, we ask that you come up to microphone, please. Okay, seeing no audience comments, we did get a comment from Kate Waterman Culpa, which we will add to the record. And I'm going to, unless someone is interested in closing this hearing, I'm gonna ask that we continue it till our next meeting. Okay,
Second.
all right, so I'll make a motion then to continue this public hearing at our next meeting, which is October 24th. Ms. Torrey seconded, all in favor? Aye. Okay, the third public hearing this evening, I'll make a motion to open it. It is for the local revitalization project, otherwise known as the LWRP Consistency Review Law.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So, the LWRP, has been, if you will, approved, by New York State. So we are holding a public hearing to get any additional public comment that you may have on it. It's a pretty big document. I think it's like 580.
Oh, no,
No, this one.
really on the local consistency review local.
Oh, yeah, I'm just giving the background. I'm just giving the background of what the LWRP is. So it's a document that we finally got to some conclusion, and I think 500 and some pages
Yeah.
long. So we don't have a copy of it here, but it
We don't
is,
have-
is
It's
it online?
online.
To adopt.
Okay.
Yeah, it's online. You can view it online. Mr. Frank, you can, it's online now.
Okay.
The new version.
Not the town.
No, the village, new
Well,
version,
just mean if
which
you
is now
don't-
complete
you can't use
and
it.
with all the changes, so you can view it online. Okay?
So, so the hearing, I think we got a second, all in favor. So if you would like to comment on the local revitalization project, we ask that you come up to the microphone, please.
It's the local law.
Nick Roth, 135 Oak Grove. I was on the committee and I received the email from Wendy Silvassi, the coordinator that was hired to shepherd this through. And she made the announcement, but she said that there were some technical changes, minor technical changes available. I received, I think today, Judy, you sent the document to Dropbox.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so I received the document, but obviously did not have an opportunity to read it before I came here. Is there a summation of the technical changes the state suggested that we can hear now that Wendy alluded to in the communication last Saturday?
No,
No,
no.
I think they sent me that also in a Dropbox. I
Okay,
can forward that to you tomorrow.
all right, so that's separate than the document.
Could I see that too, please?
Sure.
Yeah, all of us?
Yeah.
It'll be easier for all of us.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're on the website, can people find it because later on.
I send that to you today?
What did you send?
The LWRP, I don't think I gave it to her.
Well,
No,
so
we'll get it up under the LWRP, under, the, I don't know if we
it
have
was there was a projects tab,
projects tab.
and I believe that's where LWRP stuff was hosted, so that might be a good place for it.
It's on my computer.
Okay.
It's too big.
Yeah,
Walkable,
let me-
Williamsville.
WalkableWilliamsville.com,
That would be helpful.
and is it up yet? Because I can tell them exactly where it is if it.
It's not up yet, no,
Okay.
but, I will get it to Kelsey to put it up.
Okay, so stay tuned and it'll be available.
Yeah, so if you go to our Village of Williamsville, walkablecewilliamsville.com, and then like up in the right corner here, there's the 3 lines. And if you click that, there's a tab there called Projects, and we have Waterfront Revitalization. So I would assume that that's probably where it's gonna be, or maybe you put its own tab, LWRP.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're, are you gonna comment? Okay.
Yes.
So I just-
Good evening, village board members. Thank you for my 3 minutes. I'd like to
It's on.
comment on the LWRP. Is very important in terms of context. And I gave Ben Vermillion, the Public Works Director, the information, the demonstration project for the IJC, the International Joint Commission, for removing the dams and replacing, as far as the watershed floodplain. And this ties into what you're doing, and it should be in collaboration with the town of Amherst as far as the financial assistance they requested from the state, New York State Climate Smart Communities Grant Program through the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. What you have here, what Brian Koppa, and I gave this to them as far as the, I think 2017, when they did their first version of the LWRP for the Amherst Central Park Greenway that ties in, that interconnects the hydrogeographic topography as far as the plans, that this is a demonstration project, which it has, it ties into various committees, including the Historic Cultural Preservation Initiative that's tied to this. It's interesting how today or yesterday was the Indigenous Peoples Day. As far as the Native history, what's interesting, as far as the historical context, that the landscape is determined by the weather. Okay, and down in Florida, they just had what, 70 or 80 billion dollars of loss where they're not going to be able to rebuild the houses. These are issues that are connected to the dam. As far as the plans,
Mr. Frank, this, right now, we're talking about the law of
Right.
the LWRP.
right? The LWRP, as
No.
far as
No, this is something different. We're discussing the law.
it's only 500 pages.
No, this is not, no.
Not
This is,
500 pages.
this is the local law number X6 of the year 2022 for the LWRP. This is what we're discussing right now.
I'm saying it's the X.
Yeah, it's the X6 of the year 2022.
X is a placeholder.
Right.
Right.
But this is what we're discussing right now. We're not discussing the LWRP. Okay,
Oh, you're
that's
not? Okay,
no, this is the law that
excuse me, I beg
accompanies the
your pardon.
LWRP.
Oh,
Thank you.
it's in left field.
Thank you, though.
You're welcome. And just so you know, we're looking at a national heritage area to be a part of the LWRP.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's-
Anybody? Is there anyone else? All right, do you want to keep this open as well? I think we have to because of the resolution. Okay.
Yeah. we
All right.
will, yeah.
So then, we will, I'll make a motion to keep this local revitalization project consistency review law hearing open until our next meeting, which is October 24th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, our last public hearing is on an amendment for an open meetings law, so I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for amendment on open meetings law for video conferencing procedures.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So if you have a comment to make on that, we ask that you come up to the microphone. So it's 10:20. Okay, no comments, so does the board want to close this out?
I think we should, right? Yeah, I think
Not
we
a very
should.
complicated law.
It's not
What's that?
complicated, no.
Yeah,
I think
it's
we should
not.
close it out, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I will then make a motion to close the public hearing on the amendment on open meetings law for video conferencing procedures.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
That's good.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Judy.
okay. That's it for public hearings this evening, and,
We'll put them up on the website for tomorrow morning.
But if we're talking about it today, like.
You can read my copies. I didn't
It's
make
the
extra
open-
copies.
Open session law.
That's the one he wants
So
to
like how are we
see.
supposed to talk about it if no one's read it here?
I'm sorry. It's right there.
Alright.
so, at this time, we'll move into suspension of rules for public participation. I'll make a motion to open suspension of rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This is the time where you can come and address the board on any village issue. So we ask that you state your name and address for the record.
Meyer family, Willowbrook. I don't think that's where I'm going. Can you hear me? No? Hello?
Yeah,
Can you?
I can just talk. Can you hear me when I talk like this?
yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just want to bring some new information regarding the dam. I heard what Dan said. As we all know, the devastating hurricane in Florida caused severe damage. The major cause was flooding. I secured initial estimates of the cost of flood insurance going forward, and they range between $4,000 and $20,000 for a home in Williamsville that's on the floodplain. Commercial buildings, Dave Schuette's probably going to go up about 70%. There will be about a 70% increase in the price due to the losses of the hurricane. This would seem like a perfect time to really reassess the status of the dam. We know that the reason why we are deemed a floodplain is due to the dam. This has been noted by the last 4 studies done. So that coupled with a huge increase should make us stop and think about the right alternative. Presently, your decision is costing homeowners about $1 million a year. With a dam built in the 1930s that has no purpose, it would seem derelict on your part to continue to go down this path. You have the ability to put in weirs that will solve all the problems at a much lesser cost and give homeowners a chance that they will no longer live in a flood zone and perhaps be able to petition for the flood zone to be removed. We have not flooded since the dam was disabled. By patch quilting the dam, that wasn't 3 minutes.
No, it wasn't.
By patch quilting, wait a minute, now you got me off. By patch quilting the dam, you are responsible and as such could be held accountable for malfeasance and the board will most likely be sued. Please do the right thing and consider for the community. Secondly, I want to note I talked to Mary about this, you're incorrect. No one controls me and how I feel. So when you say that the mayor brought in people, because I happen to respect the mayor, that's really kindergarten-y, in my opinion. I don't think you should talk like that. I think you all have to work together. You can't just say, like you said to me walking in, you don't know what she's done to me, Cheryl. Oh my God, are we in kindergarten? Get along. People came because they're concerned. And maybe you haven't seen this in a long time, but there was about 50 people here. 48 said that they want to see a change to HBC. I don't have a bone in this game, but I think you have to listen to people and not do what you guys want to do, because that's how you operate. There was 50 people here, 48 said they want to change. Does that matter to any of you? Can I have a comment? You can use my 3 minutes. Does that matter to any of you guys? That 48 people came to that meeting and said they wanted to see a change?
We didn't hear 48 speakers.
There was 48 people in the back and I talked to all of them.
Oh.
I don't know who they are, but they all said they'd like to see a change.
I was at that meeting, I don't remember 48 people.
I'm sorry, it's my time. Could you please tell your husband not to talk when I'm talking?
Well, I think there were only two
No.
people,
You do it to me, I do it to you.
there were only two people who spoke in favor of HPC. And yes, one was trustee Hunt's husband, who's also here, and the other one was Mr. Stalteri.
Right.
Those were the only two that I can recall who
Right.
spoke in favor of
And there
it.
was 50
Everybody
people.
else who was here was obviously, it seemed to be,
Right.
spoke against it and or spoke with you afterwards, maybe, and said they weren't. I don't know, but
So I think you really gotta look at that, because you don't run the village. We run the village. And you have to listen to us. Secondly, I wanna know, is Kate Culpa a co-chair? Because that's how she's listed. If so, who's the other co-chair?
Coach?
Co-chair.
Chair.
She is the chairman and the vice chairman is Kathleen Delaney.
Okay, because it's written co-chair on documents, so you might wanna clean that up.
Okay, yeah.
that's what they told you? Who, HPC?
Yeah, when we did the appointments,
That's,
she was,
that's what we were
co-chair.
told too.
No. They voted their own chair and they did that at the first
Yes,
meeting after
yes,
reorg.
and then they voted Kathleen Delaney as co-chair.
That, I don't remember.
This is my.
I thought it was.
Okay, and I just want to give you a real example, so you know, Mary. I'm not gonna say who, but he owns 11 buildings that were designated HPC. Do you know what the value of those buildings went up or down since they were
I
designated
don't
HPC?
even know who you're talking about.
I'm not gonna tell the name.
That's the
Well,
town of
then how can
Amherst,
we-
that's the assessments, okay? It has nothing to do with the village.
It's not true.
True.
Brian Culpa, when he was mayor, made these HPC designated. He's lost $1 million of value in his home. Lastly, I just want to recommend that you really think about the way the laws are enforced. This hasn't been brought up before. Presently, when there is a code violation, it's incumbent upon the residents to take action. I don't think that's the way we want to do it, because we're neighbors and we have to maintain a neighbor relationship. That's why we have a government. I really want the or code enforcement guy to go out once a week, whatever you want, and identify issues and have him take care of them, as opposed to putting us in the position which you do, because we have to come and tell you, and then you go through hoops, and then everybody hates everybody, and then you don't have a good community. So please listen to me about the dam. I'm telling you, as an insurance professional, you're gonna have major problems if you do that dam. We haven't flooded at all. Everyone's happy. I don't beg, but I'm asking you to reconsider what I'm telling you. I'm telling you, I have the quotes right here if anyone wants to see them. I'm not even gonna be fully insured and it's gonna cost $16,000. Thank you.
Can I ask one question about your comment? How do we know that this person lost over $1 million on his property?
Yes, because when he goes to sell them, say he bought it for $250. Now, he can't sell it for $250, and he really wants to get out of the business now. He's the largest commercial owner of commercial buildings in Williamsville, and he bought them under the guise of trying to love the village. And now he's left with losing $1 million because the appraisals have gone down. It's nonsense that appraisals go up from HPC. They go down because you can't do anything. You know, he can't go and fix his roof the way he wants to because he's got to go to the board. And then it's even more expensive. So where is the incentive from a business perspective to go and put on a great roof when it's not going to get approved, and also you're going to be told to put a really costly one on? I'm glad I'm not a business owner, Lisa.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I couldn't do 100 Westchester, I just wanted to continue.
Not appropriate. I'm asking the board now, this man makes comments to me and I don't like it.
I didn't say anything. I'm sitting
Yes, you did.
Well, you did, Mr. Hunt,
You did.
actually. Yeah, so please, let's just all be respectful of one another.
Don't scare me.
Yeah, I just want to continue the conversation from earlier, and I was asking about internally, what is your tech stack for communication?
So internally, our text, we don't have a tech staff. We did have a person.
Text stack.
Oh, I have no idea what you're even referring
Stack, I
to.
mean, it's just a fancy word for the technologies that you use in coordination with each other for the purpose of internal communication.
Emails?
Yeah, email would be.
Email would be really the
Emails it.
thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, so the thing about email is it's a private form of communication. If people are having a conversation with each other, it's not super easy to share it and there is no public format, right? So for example, a committee could have a internal messaging board where they're talking to each other. But if there's a web link to it, like an online forum, then everyone would be able to see it. Do you have anything to that extent, like a Slack channel?
No, we did not.
Okay. Well, I'm kind of like a promoter of local technologies, as I mentioned before. I started a startup called distractify.com, and I've done quite a bit of historical research, going back to the invention of writing, the Gutenberg press, the invention of email, the invention of text messaging. Each of these moments of where there was at least a 10x increase in the rate of communication, it corresponded directly with a 10x increase in global productivity and like an entire host of technological advances. You could even argue that this scientific revolution itself would not have been possible if books were not invented. But it's not the case that everyone, even today, there are people who don't read books, right? So those people are still living essentially in the 1300s while the rest of us are living closer to 2000 or 2022, although I don't think that the median person is necessarily living in the 21st century. So internally, your primary output is problem solving and decision making. Problem solving, decision making have a generalized computational component. You have to talk to each other, you have to think about the answer, and there is a quality measurement objectively to the quality of the decisions that you ultimately make or to the information that you put out. And it's the count of these decisions and multiplied by the average quality per decision that really measures the performance of this board year over year. And if you implement what is called a faster rate of communication, so if you think of communication as circulation and information moving from one place to another as a flow of liquid, right, like a blood, you can actually measure that there could be a rate, or you can think of it in terms of number of bytes per second if you want to generalize the information emails. Is that 3 minutes?
That's 3 minutes. So could you wrap up your statement, please?
Yeah, to like number of bytes per second. It has been the case, I mean, generally throughout history, that when you just increase that number, then you increase the total flow of information, that productivity will also increase. And we would expect that locally, insofar as you're not completely caught up to sort of the forefront of where technology is, that if you were to catch up, you would also improve your input, and it would have a very pervasive and generalized effect on everything. And a lot of these problems that you're talking about that you're trying to solve from a social perspective would just kind of vanish or become a lot simpler if you instead of approaching your typical way, kind of like if you shifted your attention slightly to tech adoption. So that's my comment on that.
Okay, thank you.
Nick Ross, 135 Oak Grove. Information is knowledge. During the work session preceding the September 26th board meeting, Mayor Rogers asked if there were any questions or comments about a letter submitted by Mr. Matthew E2, a former village trustee, to Trustee Loader in her role as the trustee liaison to the Historic Preservation Committee. This 5-page letter offered detailed information questioning the rush for the designation of a historic district. I was amazed and dumbfounded as none of the 4 trustees offered any response to her inquiry. Nobody had a question, nobody had a comment. A 5-page document that was submitted by somebody knowledgeable on the topic, and it just seemed to be a rather a non-event. There was a letter to the editor in the, I believe, September 28th edition to the Amherst Bee, stating that a mandate was delivered to the board following the June election, a statement that is highly debatable. At the September 27th HPC public hearing, this room was packed with an overcapacity crowd. It is agreed that the issue here is not a restaurant. People wanted to learn more about the HPC. During the September 26th meeting, Trustee Delano made the remark that the HPC issue would have been not a big deal if the news hadn't picked it up. People came to that meeting due to social media. Yes, there was an online petition, but people learned about this through social media, and it was an evening of very inclement weather. People complained that they were unable to park, but they were here. There was standing room only behind us. As many entered the room, I offered them a copy of the MAT 82 letter. And people were asking why this was distributing it. I told them it was a public document and it contained issues and information that they should be understanding. The curious feedback I got from a guy that came and he said, "Who are you? Why do you have this letter?" And I said, "I'm just a citizen. I come to meetings." He said, "I come to a lot of meetings. I've never seen you." Excuse me, I don't see him in this room today. And then he told me, "I'm on the HPC and I never got this. How did you get this?" And I had to point out to him, this was addressed to Trustee Lothar, and she's a liaison. Ask her, she's sitting over here, why she did not distribute that letter. And this issue came up, Mary, during the work session, and you said you're not sure if A2's letter got distributed to the
I
commission.
think it went to all members, I think except Tony Bannon, because he had a bad email address.
Okay. Well,
And I think you spoke to Tony.
yeah, I didn't know who the heck he was. Okay, all right.
I will be certain he gets a copy.
Okay, thank you. The majority of the speakers, I don't know how many of them were there, during the public hearing voiced their opposition of the proposed designation. While 2 or 3 spoke in favor, there was more negative sentiment expressed. Many of the speakers reportedly made the same request for balance, transparency, and accountability from the HPC. Before awareness of this commission was heightened by social media, most were unaware of the power and the authority wielded by this unelected body. They want answers and they want change. Mayor Rogers, Trustee Hunt, and Lothar, you were in the room and you heard them clamoring for clarification. Trustees Delano and Torrey, have you had a chance to watch the video?
I have not.
No.
Okay. Perhaps the 5 of you ought to get together. I know Mayor Rogers offered to show part of it today, but I think it would be a good idea if the 5 of you got together as a group and watched it at the same time so you'll all be on the same page. Following the meeting, numerous people approached me and thanked me profusely for that letter of history, saying they learned quite a bit about that they did not know. Earlier tonight, I mentioned the word mandate. For the 3 of you present, you heard a mandate from the people speaking that night. The speakers are possibly your friends, your neighbors, maybe even some of them voted for you, but most importantly, they are residents, taxpayers, and your constituents. Trustee Torrey, in the work session, you said rather strongly, we are here to serve, we are here for the residents of Williamsville. Those people who spoke are demanding a change. The 5 of you now have an opportunity, if you have the maturity, the courage, the wisdom, and leadership to initiate change. This is what the people were asking for. During the last board meeting, I used the word that perhaps the HPC should take a hiatus. And for some reason, people following me thought I was saying I wanted it terminated or suspended. Hiatus does not mean that. A following editorial in the Amherst Bee suggested the same thing. Perhaps HPC needs to take a break and some changes need to be done. I mentioned the letter to the editor, and they also called for adding 2 additional historic districts in the mix now. With the defeat of the South Cayuga Initiative for a Historic District a couple years ago, the debacle around this current one, the suggestion to add 2 new historic districts is absolutely ludicrous. Balance, transparency, and accountability is not a lot to ask for from a body of unelected volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
I would just comment one thing. The suggestion for historic districts was made in a proposal that was given to the village of Williamsville several years back. There's been no discussion about any additional historic districts.
Okay, well, thank you. I was unaware of that fact.
Well, I think he's referencing, there was a letter to the editor where it was, actually, I think it was your husband, Eileen, who wrote that letter suggesting an Oak Grove Garrison district and something with Evans, North Ellicott, South Ellicott, I don't know, something like
There's no
North
discussion of
Ellicott,
HBC.
Evans.
That's what was brought up at the HBC.
Yes,
that.
correct.
Yeah, so that's, I think that's what you're referencing, was that letter to the editor, so. So I'm gonna comment on it because I think what you had a lot of good information, and I just want to make a couple comments. You're absolutely right, and I did address that with Trustee Lothar about her inaccuracy and her letter to the editor. And I will stand by the fact that I in no way, shape, or form, rallied 50 people to show up here that evening, that people showed up on their own accord because of what they had heard on the streets or seen on social media, what Cher had posted. And I just, I've asked Ms. Lothar for a retraction in the Amherst Bee, and she told me to not hold my breath. So I think that's a no, and I'll just leave it alone now. And on the other thing that you had mentioned is about working together, Mr. Roth. I am fully willing to work together with this board, and I hope that they will as well, to make the decisions that are right for all the residents, not just a few loud individuals.
Dan Hunt, 75 Evans Street. I want to talk about the Historic Preservation Committee public hearing that I attended. I just want to say that there were a lot of people that spoke, but I'd like you all to watch the video because I'm going to speak on something different. When you got to that meeting, you were asked to put your name on a piece of paper and they would call you up to speak, which most people that did speak didn't do that. But in all fairness to the chairman of that committee, there were so many people that were present that out of turn just shouted, didn't write their name down, but shouted in the audience, which was totally unfair. And I blame these meetings that are held like this, ones that I've watched on Zoom, that one that I was at on this administration, for not having meetings held in some kind of public order. And I would hope that the next meeting that it's not like that. And I think it's an embarrassment to this village that we have to have a public meeting and have an Amherst police officer present because we can't make sure meetings are held in an orderly fashion. I mean, it's embarrassing. The second thing I want to speak about is resolution number 5. I honestly don't know how this applies to village government, daily village government at all. If people have an issue with the Second Amendment, they can contact their state representative and deal with it that way. I don't see what this has anything to do with running this village. Thank you.
So just to clarify, we have historically, so the 6 years I've been on this board, always had an Amherst police officer at the meeting. And my understanding is that they are here not really to make sure that people don't speak out of turn, but for security. Because as you know, we live in a world now where politicians, there's sometimes negative things that happen to them. And, unlike the governor who has a 24/7 police escort, none of us up here have that in the budget. So we do ask them to be at the meetings for security reasons, not for public order. So I just want to clarify that. That's why they're here. I know that one was called by the chairwoman, Ms. Kolpa, during the meeting, which I thought was completely inappropriate because I think she was able to handle the meeting without calling in a police officer. So just to clarify on that. And then also to your point of resolution number 5, that is a resolution that was passed through the Association of Erie County Governments by James D. Pasquale. He is the town of Colton supervisor. And since the village of Williamsville lies within Erie County and we are members of the association, it was disseminated to all members, and he was asking all the towns, villages, and cities to consider supporting this resolution. And I, for one, my first oath of office, as well as my 4 trustees up here, is an oath of office to support the United States Constitution. And since the Second Amendment is part of the U.S. Constitution, I feel it absolutely is our job to support this amendment and also to support the resolution this evening. And if you stick around, I'm sure you'll be able to see who was for the amendment or the resolution and who was not. Did that answer your question as to why it's on there? It wasn't a resolution I wrote. It was something that was handed down by the association.
I just don't understand what it has to do with the daily operations of the village of Williamsville.
Well, it has to do with the residents' quality of life. So as a concealed carry owner, this pistol, this new law that was enacted is simply a knee-jerk reaction by the governor of New York State, has implications for the legal gun owners, myself included. And I'm sure I'm not the only legal gun owner in the village of Williamsville. So it does affect the residents' quality of life. It is potentially a greater cost too that's put on residents for the training that is going to be required going forward. And so that is why I brought it, because I do think it affects residents in an ill manner, and I wanted to make it publicly known. So, sorry, thank you.
Charles Yoda, 5411 Main Street, Williamsville. As a segue to your quality of life comments, I'm here again, once again, to speak about the upcoming winter. Being a business owner for 35 years in the village on Main Street, I've watched many a winter. And every winter, the state plow the snow onto the sidewalk. The village plow comes down and puts it in front of our door and supplements it to the mound. The mound grows bigger and bigger after every big snowfall, to the point where it's 6 feet high in front of every business in the village. And the parking spaces out there on the street are limited to one driver who can sneak out if he can park his car close enough to the curb. His passenger can no longer get out and climb the mound to get to any store in the village. As part of the quality of life, I understood in the fourth meeting, maybe I got it wrong, but if $35,000 is going to be spent on a bathroom that doesn't need to be refurnished, that could be a good overtime budget for Public Works to at least with a payloader, when they're after every large snow, come out and just gouge out all the business district, along with the fire hydrants, to allow the business walkable village to be maintained throughout the winter, which I think that's what we're trying to achieve here. I know in my case, people just don't come in when they can't park and they can't climb those mountains. And I know there are a lot of elderly clients and handicapped clients. They can't climb those mountains. And I'm too old to start shoveling it. I was told that it's up to the business owner. Now, I've spoken to the Buffalo Place people, and to get them maybe a model like that. I know a good friend of mine who was the president down there, and that maybe we could discuss doing that in this village, putting together a winter Buffalo Place style, and get the business district, the business association together, the owners of buildings, and somehow create some sort of a pay to, or along with the village budget, but we could figure this out and clear the snow in the winter so we could do business. That's my point on that. I've never come around to the village that often in the 35 years I've allowed government to go. I've been oblivious to it until recently. And I've had the pleasure of walking through the minefield that's called code enforcement. And what I've come to learn is the process. The process of code enforcement in the building department is broken. It behooves leaves all the power on the code enforcement officer to arbitrarily contrive whatever he reads in the ordinance, or if it's a favored architect or a favored building owner, to acknowledge his, to twist the code in his direction. And it forces the aggrieved individual to file an Article 78 if he's aggrieved and not happy. I believe the building department needs oversight to coordinate the code, and whether it should go to a historic department, whether it should go to the historic commission or the planning board, or there should be a checkoff. You should not have the power to arbitrarily just willy-nilly decide something and force everybody to fight it out and go to Article 78 in this situation. That's the end of my speech. Thank you.
Thank you. The snow issue, funny that you brought that up, because I was actually just thinking about that the other day, how I feel like every year that I've been on this board, we have that conversation. you know, when the snow starts falling, and I get what you're saying about parking. You know, it's hard, you can't get a passenger out because there's a snowbank, and so I don't know if this board has any thoughts on that, or maybe a way we haven't approached it before.
Honestly, I'm sorry, Mary.
No, go ahead.
When years past, I remember there was administration passed, they did send out DPW with a payloader, and they used the backhoe and gouged out part of those mountains all along Main Street in the after hours, after the state plows had come through and cleared Main Street. The overtime budget maybe was in place, but the boys came out either really early in the morning before traffic was out there, or late at night after the snowfall or during, and cleared out at least in front of, at least enough to where you can walk from your car and come through a tunnel of snow to get to your business. That was done in years past, a couple of seasons, and then it went away. And now we're left with, if you saw the picture in the Amherst Bee last year, I'm
Yes.
6'2", the mountain of snow was 6'5" above me. And it made the front page of the Bee. How can we be a viable business community in a luxurious district like Williamsville and not be able to allow people to walk and to come into the businesses? I don't understand it. So if you want to put a tax on businesses, if we all have to contribute $100 a year or something to a snow removal Buffalo Place style model as a building owner, listen, I don't have a problem with that if we get the business association involved. If you're going to spend $35,000 on toilets that don't need to be fixed, you can put $35,000 into the overtime budget for DPW in the winter to clear away the snow for the business district.
Anyone have any initial comments? If not, we'll put it on work session for the next meeting. I want to have our crew chief here. He's not here this evening, so.
We did look at a BID about 20 or 25 years ago, a business improvement district. And
Which is what Buffalo Place is.
which is what
Buffalo Places, yeah.
And what it is a surcharge on each business, and they pay in addition to their taxes, that goes directly to things like snow removal, flags, advertising, things that benefit just those businesses who are part of the district. And we get absolutely no cooperation from business owners. And part of the issue is so many of the buildings along Main Street aren't owned by individuals, they're owned by companies who don't care. You pay your rent and they don't want anything, they don't want to pay anything else. And I mean, I understand their perspective, but that was the outcome that we had at that time. Maybe it's time to look at it again.
I believe that, how many big snows do we have in a season?
Not many
You can
anymore.
count them.
Yeah.
And when the state plow finishes, they do their duty, they throw it right up, and I tell you, the icebergs hit my windows.
Yeah.
That's how fast they come down the street.
Well, I know the DPW used to do 1 or 2 breaks in each block, so people could at least.
Yeah, and they stopped doing it.
Yeah.
They stopped doing it. I mean, I would even be happy with that, but it would be for parking, if you could allow the street parking to go through the winter by taking it all out. It's a problem of where you dump the snow. I believe there's somewhere in Amherst where this town will allow an open field where we can take DPW, take that snow, dump it, and make a toboggan run for the kids of Amherst, with the piles of snow that we collect from our streets in the winter months. It could be a plus for us,
Well, it's something to talk about.
Yeah, so we'll put it on work session for our October 24th meeting, and we should have our crew chief here that evening, and maybe we can just bounce around some new ideas and see what we can come up with. All right, thank you. Anyone else? We're still open for public comment.
We already talked about that. We're adjourned.
I think he probably has something new to talk
Oh,
about.
no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. This is the same old, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, it's something.
No.
Paul Craig, 29 South Ellicott. About the bathrooms, I'm confused. I sat in that meeting earlier. Is a study the same as when I say, Kohler come out over, give me a price of remodeling my
No.
bathroom?
It's a little bit more, and I'll tell you why. So one of the issues that we have here is if you go through that back door straight here, there is a slop sink, and it's located right next to
Oh,
The
fuse
electrical
box.
box.
the fuse
electrical
box. So it's not up to code, so we do get dinged on that. And so it's a safety issue, it's a code issue, and it's just isn't very sanitary. So that hallway is carpeted, and the carpet is just in awful shape because when our cleaning person comes in and uses that slop sink, as you can imagine, they're taking the big yellow buckets of water, and it just isn't the best. So part of the study is to get that slop sink so it would be located in the men's room and accessed through the men's room through a special. So we need to do some wall movings, and then we also need to allow for potentially finding some like hazardous material or something, right, that's part of the study as well. So that's why it's a little different than when you do a home remodeling project.
And how to
ADA compliant.
And that too, we need to take in ADA compliance, with.
And the fact that, we don't close, so we can't go down there. It has to be, it's like a road project, right? You have to, not only, it's not just the project, it's how to get it around the project.
Yeah, I didn't realize it took more than just the bathroom. It's
Yeah.
changing a couple urinals and sinks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, all right. I'll keep it in front of you. Garrison Park, the gazebo, the roof. And then also, I don't expect an answer yet. And whatever happened to the Williamsville Bank mural? Is that still around? And we don't need an answer right away, but keep it in front.
Yeah, on the Bank of America,
Bank of America.
Yeah.
it was
It's
designated, it was
Yeah,
landmarked.
it's an interior.
Landmark, and it's still there.
Yeah, and because you were talking about, okay, the meeting house and the historical values that are in it, I just wondered, is there any place where the mural's gonna go yet, or is that still?
There's no indication that the mural is gonna go anywhere. It may stay with the building. I don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
Just keep it.
I was told that, Ellie Grunauer told me a couple weeks ago that she has been in discussions with her landlord, and he did not renew their lease for their building. And he is hinting to her that it may be in the bank. They may let him park here into the bank if he buys it.
Oh, wow.
I don't know.
Good.
That's just, what he had told her and she told me.
Yeah. All right, very good, thank you.
Hello, my name's Tom Frank. I reside at 5403 Main Street. And I'd just like to comment on the Ellicott Creek, the dam project. As far as the Ellicott Creek watershed floodplain, that this is very important strategically on a long-term basis. This was, and I gave the information to Ben regarding dam removal and the plan for a whole watershed community approach. And it's interesting that the town of Amherst, as far as the, and the board approved it and they sent it to the state. This is their 520 page, I guess yours is only 510. It used to be 110. As far as the Amherst Central Park, the project charter, okay, as far as the charter for this, that this is an opportunity as far as the climate smart community certification project. As far as the village and the town, they're doing this. They got the award in Lancaster and Cheektowaga. The thing is, they're all on Ellicott Creek, and as far as the where you're sitting, this the historical perspective, as far as the historic context, it needs to be put in as far as how the development, as far as the parking lots and the impervious surface relates to climate change and environmental sustainability. That what's really interesting is how where we are here, that there were 3 wars that were connected to where we are, the Onondaga Escarpment and the Gadwin Yada, the Ellicott Creek, as far as the Native Americans. That there were 3 wars: the French and Indian War, the 7 Years' War, the Revolutionary War, and the War of 1812. That was really interesting is that George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and Joseph Ellicott, the surveyor of Ellicott's Creek, they all worked for Major General Lord Jeffrey Amherst. And as far as their the British commander, they practiced institutional cultural genocide on the Native Americans, as far as the Senecas and Neutrals and Eries. That there's history here that in the village, this was all woodland, and that the as far as the watershed, you know, the climate change, as far as the initiative, this has got to be tied into the education system, as far as the schools, the school districts. We're all a part of the watershed. Come on, you're made out of water. And, that it's a collective responsibility, and I just wanted to bring it to your attention that as far as there's an opportunity here, as far as the history of Ellicott Creek, as far as attaining a national heritage area designation, as far as the 1850 incorporation of the village of Williamsville and its connection to the water mill, Williams Mill. It used to be on the other side of the creek. And as far as the erosion that you're having, that these issues were dealt with when FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, gave the 50-year license for the licensing of the Niagara Power Project that generates some $2 billion a year of revenue. And the United States Army Corps of Engineers, I mean, come on, as far as the
Tom, could you
dam.
wrap up your statement? Could you wrap up?
Oh, yeah, the natural course of Ellicott Creek was on the west side. That there were 30 water mills. Evans had the patent from the American Philosophical Society for the production of those water mills, 30 of them on Ellicott Creek. And that historic context, that's where electricity came from, Benjamin Franklin.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
And yeah, the connection that they were, you know, the cast of characters, they were all interrelated and they knew what they were doing as far as the manifest destiny. And I'd just like to leave this with you because it's part, as far as the Amherst and Williamsville.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
Part of the Erie Canal, I'm sorry, the Niagara River.
Yeah, did you?
And we're looking at an expectancy through 2057 that's going to have like a $500 million.
Yeah, I remember these.
Value proposition. That's what
You can hold on to them. I remember seeing these. You sure?
One of your
Okay.
friends.
Do I have any friends up there? I remember these. These were kind of cool.
Thank you, Tom.
Well, these were current? These aren't current. They used to do these a couple of years ago. But you didn't pick this up recently at Wegmans, or did you?
I got them today. I was just there.
Oh, you got them at okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Because I
saying.
knew that,
This stuff, I gave that concept to Wegmans.
yeah,
And, but also I didn't tell you that I have an email from the governor.
I don't know, next time we go to Wegmans.
And Kathy Hochul, regarding this project.
Yeah, okay.
Program for the New York State Parks and Trails.
did you pick these up on Sheridan Drive, Wegmans?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
they're good.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think you used to do them, but I.
Yeah, I remember they were.
Thank you.
You know, Okay, great. Anyone else who would like to comment or speak? Okay, seeing none, I'll make a motion to close suspension of rules for public participation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, reports and resolutions. A few reports. The Parks Committee has chosen Friday, October 14th at 3 p.m. for the ribbon cutting ceremony at South Lawn Park. Everybody is invited. And we should, I think, be pretty good with having most everything complete over there. Certainly the play equipment will be complete. I know the gentleman is working on finishing up the pavilion. It may not be fully done by Friday, but it should shortly be done by the following week. So Friday, October 14th at 3 p.m. And what else do I have? The fire department had an open house this weekend and it had great attendance. I don't know if anybody had a chance to stop in, but it was an extremely well-attended event. And I think that's all I have to report. I'll get into resolutions. I will make a motion to approve resolutions number 1, 2, 3, and 4 as they appear in the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution number 5, as I spoke earlier on it, just a little background. This was a resolution that was sent through Association of Erie County Governments, and it originated with Supervisor James D. Pasquale, who is the Town of Colden supervisor. And I just want to read a brief paragraph here of what he wrote when he sent this resolution to all the towns, cities, and villages. He wrote, the new gun laws primarily affect legal pistol permit holders by significantly restricting and or removing their ability to carry their legal firearm and protect themselves or others if needed. As I briefly explained last night, I worked in the Department of Corrections for 32 years at one of the most notorious prisons in the world. During my career, I had many conversations with incarcerated individuals regarding firearms. I was told by the inmates that any laws would not affect them because they chose not to follow them anyway. It has been proven that criminals prey on the weak, which these new laws essentially make many of us by restricting our right to carry a firearm. There have been incidents where a legal gun owner have saved many lives, preventing a criminal or a deranged individual from committing a crime. The tragic events in the past shouldn't happen, I totally agree, but I also know that when I'm carrying my firearm and if something was to happen, I would be able to defend the people around me and hopefully put an end to an event. So with that, I'm going to read resolution number 5. Whereas the Village of Williamsville is a member of the Association of Erie County Governments, and whereas the Association of Erie County Governments has a long, proud tradition of staunchly supporting the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, and whereas the Association of Erie County Governments supports and promotes safe and responsible gun ownership rights of residents across the state of New York, and whereas in the wake of the evil, heinous actions against defenseless persons at Tops Market in Buffalo, the New York State Legislature, after that terrible tragedy, seized the opportunity to rush through 10 new laws that are meant to erode the right of legal gun owners and punish the legal and legitimate businesses in the firearms industry. And where shortly thereafter, the Bruin opinion was handed down from the United States Supreme Court, striking down the restrictive nature of laws limiting and pertaining to pistol permits in New York. And whereas with the ink barely dry on New York's newest gun laws, the New York State Senate and Assembly, in response to the Bruin opinion, rushed to pass S51001 and A41001 during an extraordinary session that essentially gutted the Second Amendment rights of citizens across New York State to carry their concealed firearm in public. And whereas the New York State Sheriff's Association recognized these new laws as, I quote, punitive licensing requirements that aim only to restrain and punish law-abiding citizens who wish to exercise their Second Amendment rights, unquote. And whereas as trustees of the Village of Williamsville and members of the Association of Erie County Governments, we take an oath of office to uphold the Constitution, and this is clearly a flagrant violation of the constitutional rights of our citizens, taking away their ability to protect themselves and their loved ones and creating a bureaucratic boondoggle that ultimately seeks to disarm our residents. And whereas the Village of Williamsville and the Association of Erie County Governments are opposed to the recent New York State actions restricting Second Amendment rights, now therefore be it resolved that the Association of Erie County Governments is committed to pursuing all legislative and legal remedies, either alone or in concert with other like-minded municipalities, counties, and organizations to overturn this assault on our constitutional rights. And be it further resolved that a copy will be forwarded to everybody listed below there. Do I have a second? Nobody? Okay. On the question, is there something that you find fault with, being that this comes from the Association of Erie County Governments? Okay. Another question. Your first oath of office that you all took when you became trustees was to uphold the Constitution of the United States. Is that correct? And that was the oath that I was administered by the justice. Were you all administered that oath as well? Okay. Okay. Well, so I will just say that I'm appalled by the silence. You all did, in fact, take that oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the United States. The Second Amendment is the part of the Constitution that protects all the other amendments in the Constitution. And I would also like to add, for the record, that this was as I stated earlier, this was brought forth by Supervisor DePasquale from the town of Colden, and the Association of Erie Governments disseminated it, and we are all members as village trustees of that association. And I would just say that, if perhaps, you sit here as a trustee in the Village of Williamsville and you take an oath of office to uphold the Constitution, and perhaps you're unable to stand beside that oath of office that you took to uphold the Constitution, perhaps you ought to reconsider your seat here as trustees. Okay, moving on to resolution number 6. And I'm sure this one will get a unanimous vote of yes and with no controversy, so we'll see. Resolved that the official date and time of Halloween trick-or-treat in the Village of Williamsville is hereby designated as Monday, October 31st from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Resolution number 7, resolved that the proposal from Foyt Albert Associates.
We're not doing it. We're taking it off
Oh.
tonight. We're holding it because of the cost.
Oh, that's right, we're holding this, okay. So, Mr. Ciotta, you had mentioned about the bathrooms. We had it as a resolution this evening, but the cost has gone up from initially when we discussed this, so we're just kind of taking it off for now and holding off on that. So we're not gonna spend $49,000 on bathrooms right now.
Is that because of the issue you spoke about the electric?
No, that's still an issue, but
That has nothing to do, those are separate issues, it's just a renovation of a bathroom?
no, that's part of it. The study will involve correcting that problem with the utility sink that I mentioned. So, but we're taking it off at this point because of the cost of it. And when we were budgeting, we weren't expecting those costs to come in quite as high as they are now, so.
The costs on the estimates we were shown
Mhm.
were all 36,000 and under, and so this is all new to us.
Mhm.
We don't know why this cost increased.
Say for a lot of snow removal.
It doesn't include material or labor.
No,
No, it's just the study, yeah.
Probably 100,000.
Probably between 75 to maybe 100 high end, but for total, yes. That's
And we're
probably-
waiting for our DPW chief to explain why the costs changed from the estimates we had to today. So that's why we don't want to discuss it any further until we hear from him.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Resolution number 8, resolved that the proposal from Cadeni Architects dated July 5th, 2022 for a building envelope insulation feasibility study at the Department of Public Works, 40 South Long Street, Williamsville, at a cost of $9,800 is hereby accepted, and the mayor is hereby authorized and directed to execute said proposal on behalf of the village.
Second.
One question.
Yes.
Judy, will they come out of their budget? They don't come out of that budget that we put aside? Thank you.
Okay, so, Luther, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And that's it for reports and resolutions. Next for his reports and resolutions is Deputy Mayor Delano.
Thank you, Mayor. Reports just real quick. The tree planting should be starting soon. We did have some trees in the healing bed that didn't go in last year. Some of those trees will go in parks. Actually, those Parks Committee asked about shade trees around the new playground at South Lawn, and we have the trees for that. So that's part of what we're gonna plug in there. But you'll see it mostly on Mill and Main, and in the north central area of the village. There were quite a few removals because the budget allowed us to do that this year. And we're able to now take a second look at the trees on Mill, because when they put the new poles in, they put the lines higher. So we can actually get some bigger trees in on Mill now, rather than just small species that go 20, 25 feet. We're going to be able to go from 25 to 35 probably. So it's a good thing. And that's about it. Oh, the October 29th is a Saturday. That's the Youth and Rec Halloween party at Glen Park at the Pavilion, from 1 to 3.
Yeah.
1 to 3. So that'll be a neat event. So feel free to stop by there. Glen Avenue will be closed from South Cayuga North Cayuga to Glen, to Mill on that day, from 1 to 3 on that day, or somewhere in there. So don't use that route. And I have one resolution that Remy St. George, residing at 51 Evans Street, Williamsville, is hereby appointed as a member of the tree board through the end of the 2024-2025 official village year.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that concludes my reports and resolutions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next for her reports and resolutions is Trustee Torre.
Thank you, Mayor Rogers. I helped out at the Amherst Food Scrap Compost Drop-Off at the market this Saturday. And I want to inform people that these adorable little food compost bins are available for free to any Amherst resident. Just show up at the market. We have 3 more Saturdays where we also actually collect the food waste. It's all organic, all matter that is fruits and vegetables. And as an example, I want to tell you how much the town of Amherst and the village have collected so far. For example, in the month of July, 944 pounds of food scraps was collected on that Saturday. In August, it was 1,165 pounds. And in September, 1,355 pounds of food scraps, which is all vegetable matter, even flowers you can bring in. But what I want to stress is that this does not end up in a landfill. So the town of Amherst picks it up and it goes to their compost facility and it's used throughout the parks in the town of Amherst. So I encourage anybody, please compost your waste, your food waste, and don't throw it in the garbage. Thank you.
Is it only during the farmer's market time or is it year round?
No, and when the farmer's market is over, thank you for reminding me, please go to the North Forest drop-off. It's the highway department. You just pull right in, you take a sharp right, and they have totes there. They're lined up. You can just dump your compost into the totes and leave. So it's a drive-through year-round. So if you can't make it to the farmer's market, you can go to the North Forest Highway Department. And also this year, the Amherst will be composting Halloween pumpkins, so don't throw them in your garbage. They're collecting them again at the Amherst Highway Department on North Forest on November 5th between the hours of 10 to 1, and they will be added to our compost. So I'm gonna put that on our Facebook so people know. And then I'd also like to report on, we've all heard about the spotted lanternfly that has invaded our area of Buffalo. It's very invasive, and it basically destroys hardwood trees and fruit trees. And the state of New York is extremely concerned, and I have, that's all copies, right? Right over here? And I if you would please pick up copies of informational pamphlets and read about it. And I will also post more of this on our Facebook page so people can look out for this invasive bug and report it to the DEC. All right, thank you very much. And I have one resolution tonight. Resolve the requested increase for Williams Shut and Associates for the Glen Park septic system that includes the schedule and performance of additional topographic survey and development of a second design option for the septic system is hereby approved in the additional amount of $3,250 to be paid for by the Glen Park Fund.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, that's all. And the other resolution will not be read tonight. Okay, thank you. Next for her reports and resolutions is trustee Hunt.
I have actually no reports and resolutions tonight. Things are in progress in arts, culture, diversity. Nothing has changed since the last meeting. We have one coming up Thursday. We'll have more information at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Next for her reports and resolutions is trustee Lothar.
Thank you, Mayor. I would report on the beautification committee on the job they did this summer. Walking around the village, everywhere you see flowers, basically these guys have been working hard. They planted over 3,000 bulbs in the Pocket Park this past weekend. And it's a small group of village residents and they do a phenomenal job. Right now, they're working in concert with the Glen Park Joint Board and they're going to be decorating for Halloween at the Glen Park entrance. And they've got scarecrows and ghosts and witches and everything else going in there and lighting. So it should be fun, but they do a great job. They take care of the Pocket Park that's between the library and Village Hall. And they take care of the 1812 garden at Main and Evans, Garrison Park Garden, the entrance to Island Park, the front entrance to the Glen Park. They do a really wonderful job, and we should be very thankful for what they do. They save us a fortune, and they beautify the village. So hats off to those folks. The Meeting House Committee will be meeting next Monday, October 17th at 6:30 in the Meeting House. They just successfully finished their run of the play, Brighton Beach, and it was very well attended. A lot of village residents and outside the village residents came to see it. And they did a really great job with that. HPC, Historic Preservation Commission, will continue their public hearing on Tuesday, October 25th at 6 p.m., followed by the regular meeting when the comments are finished or at 6:30 p.m. That's all I have for my report tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So any staff reports? All right, so we do have two executive sessions this evening. So we are going to go across the hall and discuss our executive session items. One is to discuss the employment history of a particular person. And the second executive session is to discuss the potential litigation against the village. So at this time, we are going to then adjourn the meeting after we're done with the executive session. I don't think we have anything further to discuss. I think we went through work session, right?
We did.
So I thank you for coming tonight and have a great evening, and we'll see you at our next meeting. But at this point, before we adjourn, I just want to make a motion to open executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular person and also to discuss the potential litigation against the village.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, let's all head across the way then.
Judy, am I